So today I thought I would talk a little bit about what's happening with your skin and your face as you begin to age. We've had a few people ask us what on earth's going on with their skin in the perimenopause and the postmenopause. So I thought I would incorporate a little bit of that as well. So if we think about our faces, first of all, your facial structure obviously gets to a certain point in early adulthood, and then you would think it pretty much stayed the same because you've finished growing, etc. But actually that's not the case. And as we age, lots of bony changes happen in the face, particularly from the sort of 40s and 50s onwards. And we get changes around the eye area, the orbit, and the bony orbit becomes bigger. And that often starts to give us that sort of sunken appearance. We get changes in the cheek, and the cheek begins to flatten in the bone structure. And we also get changes in our jaw and teeth. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to try and hold on to as many of your own teeth as you can, because obviously whenever you lose teeth, you get some bone resorption, and that actually changes the shape of your face. So facial shape is changing due to bony loss. And then the next layer really in the face is muscle. And we've obviously got lots of muscle that allows us to make all the expressions. So it allows you to speak, talk, chew, laugh, smile, raise your eyebrows, smile at people, lots of interaction. And then also those sort of more negative things. So sometimes we end up clenching our jaw or grinding our teeth, and that's all related to muscle. And the muscles with age also do tend to get a bit smaller, they get a little bit more lax, and again that starts to change the shape of the face. And then the next layers are what are called our fat pads, and we've got a deep layer of fat pads and a thin layer of fat pads, and everyone has fat pads. It's nothing to do with being fat per se, and we need to have the fat pads in our face. It allows the skin and everything to sit nicely. As we age, those fat pads actually really begin to deteriorate and shrink in certain levels. And in the superficial or top layer, they tend to droop a little bit. And so if you think about all those layers, and we haven't even talked about skin yet. So we've got sort of bone slightly disappearing and changing shape. We've got muscles shrinking. We've got fat pads deteriorating and slipping, and all of that starts to cause this heaviness in the face. So when we think of a young face, we think of it as being a bit heart-shaped, so kind of in theory with that pointiness at the chin. And then as we begin to age, more and more I see women in their 40s and 50s, they'll come into the clinic and they don't like this area here. And that's because the face is beginning to square off. And what you see on the surface is a reflection of what's happening in all of those layers of the face. And then, of course, we've also got the skin. So when we begin to age from a skin perspective, and that's in the 20s, we have less collagen and elastin in our skin. And that is definitely accelerated for those of us who are living in Australia. So unfortunately, aging is actually really quite accelerated here because of the amount of UV damage. And I have to admit, when I first moved here from Ireland, it was something that I did notice nearly immediately, is that unfortunately people's skin looked a bit older than they actually were in their biological age. So that their skin was older than they were. And that's all thanks to that sun that we all enjoy and have such a great life outside with. But the reality is it's so damaging to the skin. And I do think that we've probably done quite a good job of explaining to people that too much sun puts you at risk of skin cancer. And most people know that those sort of dark and age spots on their face are also caused by the sun. But what I think a lot of people don't understand really is the aging effect of the sun, and it really is quite considerable. If you're also perimenopausal or postmenopausal woman, you've either got very deteriorating and dropping levels of estrogen in your skin, and then you've also got in the postmenopause basically no estrogen in your body. And what we know is that in the skin there are estrogen receptors that play an important role in things like hydration of the skin, in terms of collagen and elastin. And so estrogen is very, very fundamental to the skin. It's also got a very big anti-inflammatory property. So if we think about what's going on in the skin, as I said, when you're in your 20s, it begins to happen. So collagen is something that's always being sort of made, but basically as you start to age, per year, you probably make about 1% per year less than you need in your 20s onwards. And then what we know is that in the postmenopause, that accelerates and is probably on average about 2% per year of deficit. So, you can know after 20, 30 years, that really is beginning to add up. We also know that women have a real double whammy. So sometime around the menopause, women can get a drop of up to 30% of their loss of collagen. And that's why I often have women come into the clinic. They invariably have a photo of themselves from 2 or 3 years before, and they often feel like they're really unrecognizable, or they feel like they've just aged overnight. And although it hasn't been quite an overnight aging process, it's certainly something that has happened reasonably dramatically in a short period of time. And they're absolutely right. They have had a real fall off a cliff of their collagen and elastin. And I want you to think of collagen and elastin a little bit like a really nice rubber band. So, if you had a rubber band and you're playing with a rubber band or an elastic as a child, you can stretch it and it just keeps going back to its original size. But if you found an old rubber band that had maybe been in the drawer for 5 or 10 years and you took it out, it was likely to be a little bit hard, a little bit mangled. And if you tried to stretch it, it's likely to snap. That's a little bit like what's happening with your collagen and elastin. So you no longer have that elasticity of the skin. So whenever you're younger and you're smiling or scrunching up your eyes or raising your forehead, you've got this lovely, thick, plump skin, and you just contract your muscle and then relax, and there's no line left behind. But as you're aging, basically your skin is thinner, it's drier, and those lines are becoming more like folds in a piece of paper. So in terms of aging and facial changes, yes, you are right. There are things that seem to be happening a little bit more quickly than you'd like them to be. Yes, it's not too late to start wearing sun protection every day. It really, really does make a difference. I have to say the other thing that's really noticeable, particularly here in Australia, is although it's really hot and sunny a lot of the time, I find that so many people do not wear UV protection every day. They'll often say things to me like, oh, I wear it when I go to the beach, or I wear it when I go for a walk, but they don't wear it whenever they are in the car or driving to work or walking to the train station. And what I will tell you is, without shadow of a doubt, we do a full skin assessment on everyone who comes to our clinic. And we use a piece of equipment that does a special type of photography that lets me see the sun damage. And invariably, in anyone who drives a car, the sun damage on their face is always so much worse on the right. It's very, very obvious. Anyone can see it. The patient themselves often remark, oh my goodness, look how much worse it is on the right. And obviously, if I lived in the US or in France or somewhere where they drive on the other side of the road, I suspect it would definitely be on the other side as well. So I want you to really think about the things that you can change. And that's one of them. You should be wearing sun protection every day, because, if you sit at a desk in an office and there's a nice window with the sun shining in, it's damaging your skin. If you're driving to work or sitting on the train and the sun is shining in, it's damaging your skin. So definitely UV protection is something that you can control. There's no doubt that in the perimenopause and postmenopause, because your skin is drying out, there's a real drop in the amount of hyaluronic acid in the skin that we probably do really need to supplement that in terms of using a serum, more moisturizers, and particularly as we get into the cooler months of the year, really, really bumping up the sort of the richness of the hydration we're putting into the skin, both on the skin and of course making sure that we're drinking enough fluid as well. The other things with regards to bony changes and muscle changes, look, to be honest, there's really not much that you can do to prevent those. They often have a genetic element, and there's something that does happen with aging. However, there are some treatments that do help with those, but they're very individualized, and I think it's something that I'd rather have a one-to-one conversation with people about. So look, I'm hoping that that's helping you understand that it's not just saggy skin that's making you feel like your face looks a bit different. And it's not just that a bit of skin tightening is going to take it all away. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And as much as I love a bit of skin tightening as much as the next person, It really is the whole depth of the face that's changing. And we need to keep that in mind whenever we're trying to think of a solution. So I hope that helps. Hopefully you get to understand a little bit more what's going on in your face. And as they say, knowledge is power, and it gives you the power to go and do something about it. This podcast and any information, advice, opinions, or statements within it do not constitute medical, healthcare, or other professional advice. Information is provided for educational and entertainment purposes only. If you have any health concerns, always consult your doctor.